We approached the US Embassy in Asunción. Paraguay was under an arms embargo at the time of the F4 deal. But neither the ambassador nor his spokesman would comment. Did the arms trade actually go through the embassy? Was there any knowledge of?
You can call either the Department of State or the Department of Defense, as I've told you previously.
Did it go through the embassy? Excuse me, did it actually go through the embassy?
I've already said I've been asked to refer questions on that subject to the department. Thank you.
So we called the State Department to be told that the United States did not authorize arms shipments through Paraguay to Iran.
And what do you expect they to say? Yes, we did, and we signed. Of course, the Americans, they never know about this kind of business. They never know about the Iran-Contras, about the Sandinistas. They never know. They're always looking when their salesmen are selling weapons around the world. The government are looking to other side.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God, I do.
The F4 deal appears to be an early episode of the Iran-Contra scandal.
At the National Security
Oliver
Council.
North then testified to the sales of American anti-tank missiles to Iran. But the hearings never investigated deals prior to 1985. The United States wasn't the only embargo breaker. Italy used Paraguay to export arms to South Africa. There were close links between the Paraguayan and South African governments. Dear friend, says one letter in the archive, addressed to Pastor Coronel, the secret police chief. It's from the Director General of the South African Intelligence Service, and says, "Thank you for all you've done to make our visit such a memorable one." A congressional committee in Paraguay is now investigating the whole range of covert arms deals, apparently all part of the business of government for General Stroessner. Because of the involvement of President Rodriguez's son-in-law, it's unlikely anyone will be prosecuted. The deals show that even while Paraguay was being condemned for human rights violations, Western governments were using it to break their own arms embargoes. Even after Stroessner was overthrown, arms trafficking has continued. 66 boxes of Israeli machine guns were smuggled through the airport in September 1989, most of them on their way to the drug barons of Colombia.
Pero varias mercaderías no son debidamente controladas por la aduana y por la institución del aeropuerto. Eso posibilita que esos armamentos que ingresaron por el mismo mecanismo siga entrando sin ningún tipo de conveniencia.
Union officials blame President Rodriguez. They say he's doing nothing to stop the traffic.
No puede acabar en el momento que el presidente de la República es un obstáculo para determinar cambios. Eso evidencia que el presidente de la República está de acuerdo con cualquier tipo de tráfico.
Under Stroessner, all sorts of creative ways of making money were dreamt up. In the archives, there's evidence that corrupt officials were selling passports to non-Paraguayans. The illegal trade was said to bring in at least $24 million a year. Individual passports cost $12,000. Top of the range were diplomatic passports at up to 4 times that price. An International Herald Tribune ad in 1986 invited anyone to apply to become a Paraguayan honorary consul. Hundreds did. Some of the applicants were British. One inquiry was from an inmate of Pentonville Prison. There was also a gentleman from Henley-on-Thames and a doctor from Kensington. The doctor was offered a number of options. It's possible to become honorary consul of Paraguay for $48,000, Burkina Faso for $45,000, and Bolivia for a mere $38,000. The documents show that international criminals could also get Paraguayan passports. The French heroin smuggler whose crimes were portrayed in the film The French Connection. One of the Italian terrorists who blew up Bologna railway station in 1980. And the infamous jackal who tried to assassinate President de Gaulle was actually granted asylum in Paraguay. Even more notorious were the Nazis. Joseph Mengele was given Paraguayan citizenship and lived here before going to Brazil. Dr. Mengele, known as the Angel of Death, experimented on children at Auschwitz. It's always been believed that Hitler's deputy, Martin Bormann, had died at the end of the war in Berlin. But there's a document in the archives which says that Bormann came to Paraguay in 1956. A West German intelligence source is quoted as saying Bormann died in Asunción 3 years later. If correct, it raises the question, why didn't West German intelligence report Bormann's whereabouts before? Bormann, according to the new evidence, lived in a small town called Hohenau, founded by Germans nearly 100 years ago. Today they dance to Paraguayan music, although there are still many signs of their German roots. The people of Hohenau always welcomed fellow Germans who turned up looking for a place to stay. In the local bar, they remembered the so-called Angel of Death arriving on a horse.
Der Mengele war Zeit hier mit dem Krug.
Kannst du aber nicht.
Ja, der kam früher beim Opa. Der kam früher beim Opa bei meinem Schwiegervater.
This is the hotel today. Alban Krug's son remembers his father sheltering Mengele all those years ago. Mengele was a man they admired.
Como persona, una excelentísima persona. No tenía nada. Era muy distinto a muchos alemanes que vinieron, un hombre muy ordenado, muy limpio. Me recuerdo que él muchas veces le decía a mi padre de que la persecución no es por el problema que se le dice de haber ejecutado a los, sino que el problema de ellos es por la sabiduría que llevaron, por los grandes eventos que tienen, y de que eso se le iba a...
General Stroessner himself was half German and welcomed Nazi fugitives to Paraguay. If Martin Bormann was one of them, he's left little trace. But one of those who does remember Bormann is the man whose father was the accountant in Hohenau.
Yo le he visto en una oportunidad en un baile, en una casa que no quisiera dar el nombre, ¿verdad? Era un señor alto, de muy buena presencia. Aquí en el Paraguay siempre tuvo una simpatía muy especial los nazis, se le apreciaba mucho.
And then there's Mrs. Biss. She remembers the night in 1958 when her doctor husband was called out secretly to treat an unknown patient who was seriously ill. Later on, he recognized Martin Bormann from photographs. The document says Martin Bormann died of stomach cancer and was buried in the cemetery of Etá near Asunción. This is the cemetery. A corpse was brought here in the middle of the night back in 1959. The daughter of the local gravedigger remembers her father burying it at this spot in an unmarked grave.
Mi papá vino y le trajo 3 personas para enterrarse, deja ahí frente al cementerio. Y mi papá mete así con 3 personas. Entonces trae mi papá y acá enterró mi papá.
¿Fue Martin Bormann?
Sí, ese sí es Martin Bormann. Sí.
The exhumation of the grave will be the only way to prove Martin Bormann was buried here. But so far, no one has asked for it. Integrating Paraguay into the modern world isn't going to be easy. The legacy of the past hangs over the country. railway was built by the English in 1861. Wood-burning engine dates from 1900. It still runs once a day and is still the only railway in Paraguay. But then social progress here has always been slow. Now, though, the country is opening up. Democracy has arrived, and all the attendant excitement of the first free elections ever. The president has been touring the country, spreading the word for democracy. Democracy which prevents him from standing for re-election. The archives have so far not implicated Rodriguez in any of the wrongdoing of the past, but he's still criticised for being slow to purge Paraguay of corruption.
Dos bellas jóvenes tobateñas hacen entrega al jefe de Estado. Para el señor ministro.
Paraguay remains a major artery for international crime. Hundreds of stolen cars are taken over this bridge to be swapped for cocaine. A single roadblock would stop it. But Rodriguez, alleged to have had links with cocaine barons in the past, has lacked the political will to clamp down. Vested interests continue to feed the divisions between rich and poor. But democracy demands a state that respects the law instead of breaking it. Ordinary people are finding a voice, but Stroessner's secrets underline the scale of the battle to come.
This was a paradise of corruption. In this country, there were no law, no restriction, no regulation, nothing.
Y yo utilicé esto como mi misil. O sea, en mi lucha contra la impunidad en Paraguay, utilicé esto como misil. Y todo el aparato represivo cayó contra la fuerza de este misil que es la inteligencia. Y convencido de que un pueblo que olvida su pasado puede repetir otra vez su historia. Entonces, con esto estamos escribiendo la nueva historia, para que nunca más haya violación de derechos humanos en Paraguay.
Many people are tainted by the old regime. Martin Almada and other civil rights activists are now worried the archives may be destroyed after the election, because so far the files have revealed only a handful of their secrets.